Hey everyone, welcome to the 5 step roadmap to creating SOPs like a pro. In this training, we're going to be talking about how to stop being the bottleneck in our business and start delegating tasks so we can take more clients and increase our income. By the way, this free training is in partnership with one of my favorite tools, Metricool. So let's get started. Now, let me ask you, do you want to start delegating tasks and take more clients for increased income? I bet you're going to say yes, right? Well, you are in luck because if you are a service provider who's usually busy and booked out and you want to increase your income, however, you don't want to spend more hours on client work, or maybe you would want to leverage your time so that you can focus on being the CEO of your business, then this training is specifically designed for you. Okay. So what are you going to get from this training? Well, the first one, I'm going to share with you how to identify the lead domino that will make the biggest impact in your business. Second of all, I'm going to share with you a couple of shortcuts when it comes to documenting processes so you don't have to deal with a lot of stress and overwhelm while making them. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to share with you my process to profit framework so that you can serve more clients, earn more income, and have more free time doing what you love. Does that sound fair in, paying attention and spending your time for this training? I would say yes, right? So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, by the way, when you stick, when you stick through this training, I'm going to give you access to my free profitability calculator. This is a simple, no-brainer tool that's going to allow you to see how you're spending your time on client work so that you can identify trends, increase your efficiency, you'll be able to delegate easily, and then ultimately improve profitability. Okay. And then also towards the end of this training, I'm going to show you a demo of how I was able to create an SOP for a social media content strategy for my own business using Metricool. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, let me ask you, have you ever been in a situation where you've been buried neck deep in client work and you don't have to map out processes? Or maybe you don't know what to prioritize, or you're overwhelmed by having to do everything in your business. Like you're the marketing guy, you're the salesperson, you're the customer support, you're admin, you're sales, you're doing everything in your business. And you came to a point where it just gets too exhausting and almost to the point of being burnt out because you've been juggling all of these different things in your business, right? That you don't have the energy left to systemize your business. Or maybe you already have a team. However, even if you already have a team members, it still felt like you're still doing a lot of work, right? So let me know. Have you been in that situation? Because I know I have, right? Let me tell you, the first time that I delegated a task to my team member, it was a hot mess, okay? It was a complete mess. Um, I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first time that I actually hired somebody. It was the first time that I delegated a task in my own business. It was also the first time that I started like creating videos and instructions and steps for an SOP. And I didn't know it was called SOP at that point, right? I thought SOPs are this fancy, or SOPs is this fancy term that, big companies use or big corporations use to like organize the business, right? The different systems and processes in the business. I didn't know that because I only have like, a very small team and I don't have like a big business. I didn't know that it's something that I also need to do, right? Have you ever been in that same, or do you have that same thinking as well in terms of creating and mapping out SOPs in your business? Let me know because let me tell you, you are not alone. I mean, I've spoken to a whole lot of different business owners myself, and this is one of the things that they're struggling with, right? How to create SOPs, how to get started with SOPs. Why do I even have to care in terms of creating SOPs, right? So, and some of these one of the common things that I get is that the idea and the concept of creating and mapping out SOPs seem like a very daunting task, right? And let me tell you that even if you feel like there is an invisible barrier that's stopping you from creating SOP so that you will stop being the bottleneck in your business and have more free time, it is not, there is a way, okay? There is a way because SOPs need not be complicated, all right? SOPs need not be complicated. I'm not sure what comes up to you whenever you hear the word SOPs, but when the first time I heard about it, I felt like it's the some jargon that corporates use so that they can systemize their business, right? And like what I mentioned earlier, I thought it's something that I don't need in my business because I only have like a few team members, um, and I don't have a lot of processes and huge projects that I need, process flows for, right? How very wrong I was in that moment, right? So in this training, I'm gonna show you how you can actually create SOPs like a pro so that it doesn't have to be this overwhelming, super daunting task that we all need to do. Okay? Sounds like a plan? All right, let's go. So before I move on, let me just quickly introduce myself because you might be wondering who the hell am I and why am I teaching this stuff, right? So my name is Hazel June. I actually own a business, freelancing business, and it's the virtual classroom. I was a corporate trainer slash coach for over a decade, and during the pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic, I actually dropped out of corporate so that I can focus on my business. Because at that point, I was just doing it as a side hustle, right? But my goal then was to always own my business. I have this really big dream of being the entrepreneur that I am now. And I'm just so happy that I was able to really quit my job and have a full time business that I run, that I manage. Um, and it's just so nice to be able to work with clients on things that I love. So what we do in the virtual classroom is that, well, they do exactly. I'm a trainer and coach when it comes to creating digital courses, right? And my team and I help our clients create digital courses for our clients, profitable digital courses so that they can, reach more people and have more income and be able to serve a lot more without having to do one-on-ones every single time, right? So that's basically who I am and what I do. And SOPs is something that I also do for clients. Um, and the first time that I fell in love with SOPs, because I hate it, I hated it for the longest time. The first time that I fell in love with SOPs was when I was asked to facilitate a boot camp on how to create SOPs. And at that point, I didn't know much about SOPs. But then I researched about it. I was doing it. I was doing SOPs for my team members at that point. It wasn't perfect for sure, right? But I do have this processes. I do have processes in place and even videos of the processes that I have for my own business at that point. And so I used that experience and then also created a framework on how to make it easier, right? With of course the help from my mentors and my co-facilitators in the bootcamp. And that's when I fell in love with SOPs. And from then on, I've been obsessed with creating SOPs. I Because I'm sort of like a program manager for one of my clients' courses, I also create SOPs for that client. So we have like standardized procedures, with the entire program. Okay, so much about me. Let's go ahead and get started with how to create SOPs. Okay. But let me go ahead and start with the three different ways to grow a business according to Jay Abraham. So, according to Jay Abraham, there are three different ways to grow a business. The first one is um, we can increase the number of our customers. Second is increase the transaction size. And finally, we can increase the purchasing frequency. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go over all these three things, but I really just want to focus on the first way to grow a business, and that is to increase the number of customers. And if you are here in this training, you are probably a service provider. And we all know that if you own a service based business, scaling can get tricky, right? And in order for us to increase the number of our customers, we also need to have, more clients. And more clients means more hours that we need to put in to deliver the work, right? Um, and when we say more hours, that also equates to more manpower, right? So when it comes to scaling a service-based business, one of the ways to do that is to hire and delegate projects, right? Hire and delegate projects. And in order for us to do that, without having to put more hours, is to set up repeatable systems in our business, right? So that we don't have to be physically there to deliver the service. Our team members can do it for us or on our behalf, right? So the question now is, how exactly do we do that? Because let me tell you, most service providers, when they delegate um, tasks to their VA or their staff, what they do is they create a list of steps or instructions, probably record short videos, hand it down to their VAs, and then expect them to do the task effectively and efficiently. Okay, this is one of the common. What I have observed is what most service providers do, and there's no judgment here. There is no judgment here because I've done this myself. Like this is the same. This is how I got started, right? I would the first time. Remember when I mentioned earlier that the first time I delegated a task to one of my team members, it was a really messy part of my business. It was because I didn't know any better. And most of the service providers don't know any better too, right? And so starting out in delegating tasks, we just like create a list of stuff and then we expect the output will be as great if it was us who actually creates it. Does that make sense? So if you think that this is exactly what you're doing now, again, no judgment, but there is a better way. Okay, there's definitely a better way to do it, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in this training. Cool? All right. So let's go over some of the things why some service providers may actually needs to have SOPs, right? Have you ever been or have you ever felt like um, whenever you hire or delegate tasks, you felt like you're just wasting money? Because even if you delegated the task, you still end up doing the task yourself, right? Have you ever been in that position? Because I know I have. There's so many instances where I thought, why am I still delegating when I am still the one completing the task, right? Or maybe you felt like it was a complete waste of time because you're still doing more instead of doing less because there's always this back and forth, endless back and forth on how to do things, right? With your staff members. So even if they're the one completing the task or doing the task, you are still part of the task because you're still reviewing the task, you're still answering questions. There's always this back and forth communication between your team member and you, because there's just a lot of things that she didn't know how to do, right? And that actually is what happened to me before. Even after I sent a video or even after I created some steps, my team member at that time still has questions, right? Or when I review what she was able to accomplish, there's still things that she could have done differently, right? Um, and this is exactly what SOPs is going to allow us to avoid, right? Now, I'm not saying there will always be or your team members are not going to ask questions anymore. I'm not saying that you're going to stop auditing what they're doing. But I'm saying is that it will be more streamlined. Okay. And how can we do that? Well, this is my 5 step framework in creating SOPs like a pro. And these steps are number one, audit. Second, identify. The third one is create. The fourth one is document. And fifth one is refine. And I'm going to go over each of these steps in detail shortly. Okay. Before that, I just want to really stress that the lead domino in our business, in a service based business, really, are SOPs. One of my mentors actually said, "You're only as good as what you are able to document." Let me repeat that. You're only as good as what you're able to document. Okay? That's the reason why SOPs are so freaking important in a service based business, right? Because you know how sometimes when we deliver, service or whenever we fulfill services for clients, the steps and everything that we do are all in our head, right? And sometimes we find it so hard to communicate the task to um, to our team members, right? And and sometimes it happens to me a lot. Sometimes I would do something different for a particular client, and then when I try to do it, I didn't know what I did for that particular client, like what I did differently for that particular client. Like I totally forgot what step I actually created it for, or what step I actually took, right? Um, Especially if it's been some time. If some time has passed before I try and deliver that same service again, right? So because everything is just in our head, right? Everything is just in our head. So my thing here is the that SOPs are the lead domino in our business, in our service based business, because it helps us to help more clients, earn more income, and of course have more free time doing what we love, right? And that's the reason why I'm so passionate with SOPs, because this is my entire mantra, especially this year. I've been a lot more intentional with this thing, which is doing less with more. Okay. Um, and it's all about leverage. Leverage actually is my favorite word in the dictionary in the English language. Leverage. I love creating things that have multiple utility. Let me repeat that. I love creating things that have multiple utility. Because let me tell you, when I was just starting out in my business, I've created a whole bunch of different things. But do you know where they're at right now? Do you know where those resources are now? They are in my drive collecting virtual dust, right? Um, I'm not utilizing them anymore. And right now, I want to make sure that whenever I do something, I can leverage that same thing in multiple different ways. Because I would want to create more, right? I want to create more without having to do more. I want to do less with more. Does that make sense? So I hope you guys are with me because I'm going to show you exactly how we can do that with process flows. So this is the great thing, because in this training, I'm not just gonna teach you how to create process flows. I'm also gonna share with you how you can monetize process flows. Okay, so these are the different ways that you can leverage process flows. Number one is obviously it's gonna help you systemize your business operations and service delivery. It's going to help your staff become more independent when completing tasks or completing projects, right? Because you can, those SOPs that you're going to create, you can turn them into employee training manuals. And this is something that I've done for my business. I created, I think I have 3 different courses now. And those 3 employee training courses, those are the same major projects that I dedicate to my VA, right? So, and it has helped me. Those resources, those training courses that I was able to create from an SOP, those 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 helped me tremendously because I didn't need to like hop on a call and train my VA or have her shadow me or send her instructions every time. Everything is in that is in those training courses. And I partner that with an SOP, which is mapped out in a project management board. Okay. So I have a project plan. It's in the project management board, and then we have an SOP in a Google document, right? Um, so because all those resources are available, my VA don't need to ask me questions every time because everything is in there. And one of my rules, actually, one of the rules that I share with my VA is that whenever you have questions, check your resources first. If it's not there, let me know. But if you have questions or there's something that you don't know how to do, check your resources first because it's gonna be in there. If it's not in there, let me know so I can update the resources, right? And that has helped me tremendously. Like right now, I don't have this back and forth communication with my VA anymore, unless unless it's something that is not yet in the SOP or it's something new that I just added in the process. Okay, so being able to have those resources like the employee training manuals for your team members is a game changer. Okay, and you will be able to do that easily if you already have SOPs in place. Cool. So the third one, and this is one of my favorite, you can actually create digital products out of your SOPs. Say what? You can monetize your SOPs by turning those into digital products. Okay? And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. Yeah, in a few minutes. But here's how I would love for you to think about this. Okay? Have you ever heard of the big rocks concept? This is something that Stephen Covey has popularized. Stephen Covey is the author of the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. So that's the book, and the author is Stephen Covey. Okay, and this entire Big Rocks concept was taken from Stephen Covey's book, right? Um, so the Big Rocks concept is something that I've learned from a leadership training because I used to facilitate leadership training programs when I was still in corporate, and we used to have this discussion around Big Rocks when it comes to coaching and performance management. Okay, so the how the Big Rocks concept works is that imagine that you have these jars. Okay, imagine that you have these jars and you have the big rocks, you have the pebbles, and you have the sand. Okay, so think about this. If you if you start with the sand, if you start filling up the jar with the sand first, and then you start putting in the pebbles, there will not be enough space for all of the big rocks to there will be no enough space for the big rocks in the jar. But if you reverse that process and you start with the big rocks, so you have a jar, you have an empty jar, and you start filling up the jar with the big rocks first, and then you put in the pebbles. Now the sand will be able, you still can fill up the jar with the sand because guess what's gonna happen? The sand will trickle down those crevices in between the pebbles and the big rocks. However, if you put in the sand first, it's gonna fill up the space, right? So you won't have enough space for the big rocks. So what's the point? What's the point of this concept, right? According to Stephen Covey, the big rocks represent the most important task. Okay? The sand are those little things, unimportant tasks, right? So if you're going about your day, right? This is all about productivity, by the way. If you're going about your day, you want to always take care of the big rocks first. Because more often than not, those big rocks are going to take care of the pebbles in the sand. Okay? Again, the big rocks are going to take care of the pebbles in the sand most of the time. If you take care of the big rocks first, right, you will have time for the pebbles in the sand. But if you spend your time on the sand, the unimportant task first, you will find and you're going to realize at the end of the day that you haven't really completed a lot of the big things for that day because your day was just filled with those unimportant tasks that seem to be never ending. Okay? Does that make sense? So again, with the big rocks concept, you wanna focus on the big rocks first because what the big rocks do is that it automatically, by default, it automatically takes care of the pebbles in the sand. Okay? Because that what moves the needle. Does that make sense? Are we good with the big rocks? Cool. Because that's how I got my process to profit framework. Okay, that's where I've gotten my process to profit framework. Okay, so using the big rocks concept, the big rocks here are your process flows. Cool. The pebbles are your service packages. Okay, your service packages, and then the sand will be the digital product or the training manuals for your the training courses, training manuals for your employees. All right. So that means is that when you create, remember the big rocks concept, you don't want to start with the sand first. You want to start with the big rocks first, right? So if you're a service provider, you want to start with the big rocks first. Okay, you want to create your process flows first. Because once you have your process flows, it is so easy to productize your service, right? That way you don't have to do custom projects every time. Are we getting that? Are we getting that? So again, you want to start with the big rocks first, followed by the pebbles, and then the same, right? So you want to start with your process flows first, map out your processes, okay? Once you have your processes mapped out, it would be so damn easy to productize your service because you know exactly what needs to happen at every stage of that project. Are we good? And then finally, the sand represents your digital product, okay? Because you can convert those SOPs into course curriculums or into resources, PDF resources, downloadables, okay? Because you know how when you one of the what because I create courses for clients, right? And one of the common challenges that they always share is that they're having a hard time creating the content for the course. They're having a hard time mapping out the curriculum, right? But if you already have your SOPs in place, it would just be so easy to turn those into a course curriculum. Okay? Are you guys see where this is going? Do you guys see where this is going? Yeah? Good. Because this is exactly what is possible for you. Remember what I told you in the beginning? I'm not just going to teach you how to create SOPs. I'm also going to show you how you can profit or monetize SOPs. Okay? So with your process flows, number one, you're going to have a streamlined fulfillment workflow. That's given, right? So you can productize your services. You have this service packages. You can create training manuals so that whenever you onboard a new team member, or even if you have an existing team member and you're delegating a task, a completely new task to them, you have something to send them so that they can learn it on their own, implement it on their own, of course, with your guidance, right? But all the resources that they need in order to complete the task is there, right? And then you can convert the SOPs into digital downloadables. Digital downloadables are, templates, scripts, calendars, dashboards, project plans, right? You know how whenever we complete a project or whenever we deliver a service to our clients, we always have this little things that we do for them. Say, for instance, if you're a launch manager, right, or a social media manager. Say, for instance, you're a social media manager, and you have this social media calendar, content calendar, or content library, right? And you have templates for that. You can turn that you and those templates and those calendars that you have, you use that to help your clients, right? So then those same calendars and templates that you have that you're using to help your clients and you're using to help deliver or fulfill the services for your clients, you can turn those into a paid digital downloadable that you can sell on your website, right? Um, Also, you can create a membership program where they can access, different resources depending on the service that you provide. And most importantly, this is the most common type of digital product is a digital course or a training, right? So those step-by-step process that you were able to map out in your SOPs, you can convert that into a digital course because digital courses has a beginning and an end, right? And so you will be able to have, you already have the roadmap on how to help your clients from point A to point B, right? It's all mapped out in your SOPs. So you can easily turn them into digital courses. Do you guys see how by focusing on SOPs, that's the reason why I told you earlier, SOPs are the lead domino in your business because it doesn't just move the needle, it makes other things in your business a whole lot simpler and easier. So, following the big rock concept, right, my process of profit framework, when you start creating process flows, by default, it makes productization or product creation a whole lot faster, easier, and better. So, not only does SOPs help you scale your service based business by being able to delegate um, task effectively to your team members so that you can serve more clients, it also allows you to create products as additional revenue streams for your business. Are you guys seeing the possibilities of what you can get done just by prioritizing your SOPs in your business? You guys see this? Yeah? Awesome. Okay, great. So now let's get into the meat of this training, which is the 5 step framework. Okay? So let's go over these steps in detail. All right. So here's your action plan whenever you create SOPs. The first one is you want to audit your current processes of delivering a service. You want to know how much time you're actually spending fulfilling a service for your client, right? How much time you're spending on a certain task, right? How much time does your team members take in completing certain tasks, right? So that's the first one. You want to audit. The second one is you want to identify the big rock. Remember, the big rock is the most important thing, right? So you would want to know where to start. Because you know how when we complete projects for our clients, there are typically different stages or phases in project completion, right? And so identifying the big rock allows you to see which phase or which stage in the project completion or implementation needs to be prioritized. Okay? Because remember, big rocks move the needle, right? So you would want to see which one will have the biggest impact. Okay? And then third, you want to create a visual diagram of your workflow. This is a biggie. This is a biggie. This is one of my favorite things. And something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. So you want to create a visual diagram of your workflow because the brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than text. Let me repeat that. Our brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster and better than text. If you have a visual diagram, in just one glance, you know exactly what needs to happen and when, like the sequence of the workflow. It's incredibly easy to see where you're at in the process, right? And how each of the tasks, each of the steps are interrelated in completing a certain project. Okay? And then finally, this is another biggie, is to refine the process over time. Okay? Because SOPs are a living, breathing thing. All right? Let me repeat that. SOPs are a living, breathing thing. All right? They're not set in stone. It's not a one and done deal. You would need to constantly refine your processes, your SOPs, because guess what? As you learn and practice your skills, your services, you're gonna learn a few things over time. You're gonna learn some nuances over time, and you want to make sure that your SOPs reflect those. Okay, that's why you want to refine it over time. All right, so that is your action plan. You want to audit, you want to identify the big rock, you want to create a visual diagram, you want to convert your workflow into a process document, and then finally, you want to refine the process over time. Um, so at this point, let me show you an SOP, okay, that I've created specifically for Metricool. All right. So let's see. Here in this case, this is, by the way, the SOP that I've created. Okay. Now let me just quick disclaimer. My SOP may not look the same as the different SOPs that you may have encountered. Okay, but let me tell you the reasoning behind how I structured my SOPs. All right. So the first one is, of course, the title of the SOP, what it's for. In this case, it's a social media content strategy. The version, so that you would know what version you're currently working on for this particular SOP, when it was last modified, who modified it, and then who approved it. Okay. Um, and then this blurb right here about this SOP, this really is just a short description of what the SOP is about. Extremely important for your team members to know. Okay. We cannot expect our team members to know exactly what the SOP is for. It's our job to educate them. Okay. The second thing, the second piece, okay, under the about this SOP, we have these different things, okay? So we have the objective. Now, the objective is like the goal of the SOP. What are we aiming? What is the entire objective or goal? What is the purpose of this SOP, right? And then, what is the target outcome of this SOP? What do we hope to accomplish um, with this SOP, right? And then finally, why it matters. Okay, why it matters. Extremely important. So, as adult, this is adult learning 101, okay? Adult learning 101. Adults need to understand why they need to do things. If you want to get the adults buy in doing things, you need to make them understand why they need to do it in the first place. All right? So, I'm so sorry for the background noise. But yeah, so you want to make sure that you specify what the objective is for that SOP. You want to make sure that you know that your team members know what the target outcome is for that SOP and why it matters. Okay? Um, and then also, this is something that I've learned from one of my clients, the RACI assignment. And you guys can just Google this, okay? This is not something that I've invented myself. This is something that is a lot of companies are actually using. And this is extremely important and helpful if you have like a lot of team members, okay? So the RACI assignment um, just outlines who is responsible for the task, who is accountable, who is expected to support, who needs to get consulted, and who needs to get informed. Okay, so this tells you, and again, you guys can just Google this, like what the description for each of these roles are. But this is extremely important if you have extremely helpful if you have a big team, so that everybody knows what their role is um, in the totality, or on the project as a whole. All right. So I always include RACI assignment, even if we're just a small team. I always include RACI assignment in my SOPs. All right. So the workflow. So you see where I told you that you would want to have a visual diagram of your workflow, right? And guys, the auditing piece and then the identifying piece is something that I won't be able to demo today, just because it requires that you really audit your processes, right? But here's the thing: remember the profitability calculator that I told you about that you're gonna have access to for free. That free gift that I'm giving away allows you to do or complete this first step and also the second step. All right. So the free gift that I'm going to be sharing with you, before we end this training will help you with the first and second steps in the entire 5 step roadmap. Okay. So let's take a look at the third step, which is to create a visual diagram of your workflow, right? And this is the visual diagram of the workflow. All right. So if you notice, I have 3 different like phases or stages in our social media content strategy. And this workflow, and if you notice, this workflow is super simple, right? Like just one glance, you know exactly what the different components of the workflow are, what it is, like what each component is, and when it needs to get done. Okay, your workflow need not be complicated. Okay, you don't have to create this massive fancy flowchart. All right, you just need to understand how each step connects to each other. All right, your team member, rather, your team member needs to understand how each steps connect to each other, and I'm going to show you later on how that looks like. In the granular things, right? This is more like high level overview of this is like a 50,000 foot view of the entire workflow, right? Later on, I'm going to show you a more granular view, okay? But this is the workflow. So let's go over the actual structure of the SOP, right? So what I did here, the workflow, the RACI, white matters, target outcome, objective, about this SOP. These are just like introduction to your SOPs, right? The real work begins here. All right. So these are the things that I deemed are necessary to be included in your SOPs. Okay. So the first one is video walkthrough. I was not able to do it here for phase one, but I think I did it on phase two. Yes, I did. Okay. So anyway, you want to have a video walkthrough. It would be super helpful if you have one. The other one is requirements. Like what do they need to have um, in order to complete the task? Okay. What tools they need to use for this task. And then we have a quick checklist. Quick checklist is um like the general task that they need to complete. It's not super granular. It's more general. So if I need to refer to this document, right? Um, like if I will convert this SOP into a project plan, it's gonna be through this quick checklist, not the entire process flow, if that makes sense. So the first step is to review this and then choose. Okay, that would be what's going to be included in my project plan. But if you need to have the details, right, then you can. That's where the entire process flow comes in. Okay, and the last piece of your SOP should have QA checklist. All right, I remember with one of my clients, there's a lot of things that happened. Um, and that's because there was no QA. There's no QA being done for a project to be completed. All right. That's why it's super important, right? Especially if you're that person who really wants to make quality service, deliver quality service to their clients. You always want to make sure you have a QA checklist. Okay. Same thing for phase two. It's the same exact pieces, okay, that I've put here. And this one, scheduling, is where Metricool comes in, okay? I was not able to record a video for it yet, but once I do, I'm going to add the video right here, okay? And then, of course, the requirements, tools, the quick checklist, okay? If you don't have a project board, the quick checklist again is something that your staff can easily reference to as to what they need to accomplish. Okay, so, so it really is just a quick checklist, and then of course the process flow. Okay, so here I've put like what exactly they need to do once they're in Metricool. Okay, so the quick checklist gives them the general instructions, and then in the process I get to the tiniest detail. Okay, like step by step by step by step. Like what do they need to click? Where do they need to go? Right? What exactly do they need? Okay. Um, and then, of course, the QA checklist, as usual. All right. So this is the social media content strategy that I was able to map out for scheduling, creating and scheduling content in Metricool. Okay. Um, Now, let me show you the visual workflow that I was telling you guys about. Okay. So let's see. Oopsie. There you go. Oops. All right. So remember I told you that in this SOP, you have the workflow, right? In this SOP, you have the workflow, which is a high level overview of how the entire project is getting done or is being completed. Um, Now, you can also remember I told you earlier that I'm going to share with you a couple of different hacks and how you can start documenting, right? So once you have mapped out the visual diagram of your workflow, you would need to convert that workflow into a process document. So in this case, this workflow, I was able to convert these into a process document. Here you see that phase one planning, the one that I just went through earlier, the one that I just went over earlier. Those are the documented steps for each of these, right? Each of the parts of the workflow. All right. That's how, that is how I converted the workflow into a process document. You guys get that? Now, remember I told you earlier that there is a couple of hacks that I'm going to share with you so that this piece right here, this step, because this step is actually what appears to be the most daunting task. Okay, this is like the hardest task in terms of creating SOPs because this is exactly where you're going to document the steps. Okay, so how can we make it easier? How can we make it simpler? Right? The first one is to, and this is actually what I did when I created the one from Metricool. Okay, this is what I did when I created the scheduling piece of the workflow. What I did was I do I do the task, and as I do the task, I document each step that I take. Okay, so that you don't have to like create the steps out of thin air, or you don't have to think and try to remember how you were able to complete certain tasks. Where did you go? What pages did you click? What resources did you use? Right? So whenever, one of the key things that you can do is start, as you complete a certain task, you start documenting them. Okay? All right? And that's what I did. And guess what? It didn't even take me, a couple of hours to actually map this entire SOP out. Okay? Um so my point there is, you can do the task, and then as you do the task, map out the processes, map out the steps. So say for instance, like in this case, because I know Canva is something that I think Canva is something new in Metricool, and um, so I wasn't familiar how to use Canva in Metricool, so I had to like do it right, and that being, because I was doing it and documenting it at the same time, it was so easy to write the steps down because I have like, I'm actually doing it. The other hack that I want to share with you is, another hack I want to share with you is, if you cannot document the steps, if you can't document the steps as you're doing the task, I would love for you to just record your screen as you complete a task. Okay, record your screen as you complete your task, and maybe you can also start, talking to yourself in the video. Okay, and then hand it off to your VA, and then let your VA take note of every single thing that you did in that video. Okay, so that's another hack. So you want to record yourself while you're completing in a video. You want to record yourself while you're completing the task. Talk yourself through it, right? Talk yourself through it. And it doesn't matter if you commit a mistake. Okay, sometimes that happens. Whenever you're trying to do something, you forgot a certain step, you want to go back to it, right? That's okay. Okay, you're not recording for an online course. You're recording while you're doing stuff, while we're completing a task, right? So you wanna record that, right? And then have your VA watch the video, and then take note of every single thing that you do. Okay? So that's another hack. One of my favorite hacks. This is actually my favorite hack. Um, in converting your workflow into an SOP is this. I map out a flow chart. Okay, I map out a flow chart. Because remember, visuals, our brain processes visuals faster and easier than text, right? So by mapping out this flow chart, I was able to see what steps I need to do, like access Metricool to check the best times, access the content graphic in Canva, and share it through Metricool, edit the content as needed, and then update the date in the post planner so that we can schedule the content. So these are like the major steps, right? Now, once I map that out, I make notes. Okay, I make notes. So these are the things that, because when you like, so take a look at this. If you're just looking at this, it sounds like a pretty decent instructions, right? It sounds and it looks like a pretty decent set of instructions, right? However, if you really look at it, there are certain things that are missing. And so at the bottom, you will see the notes in red at the bottom. You will see like what will, and this is something that you would ask yourself while you're mapping out this, after you've mapped out this flow chart, right? How will, like here, access Metricool to check the best times to post on IG and FB. How in the heck do I do that, right? So how to access Metricool, how to know the best time to post. Access the content graphic in Canva and share it through Metricool. How do we access Canva? How do we share the post from Canva to Metricool? How do we link that, right? Edit the content. How do we edit the content? How do we access the post planner, right? What content do we need to edit, right? Here, update the date in the post planner. So again, how do we access the post planner? How do we schedule the content? Do you guys see where I'm going with this? So just by mapping out, right, mapping out the flow chart, the steps in the flow chart, you will be able to easily take note, okay, what is missing in this step? What does my team member need to have access to, or what does she need to know in order to complete these steps that I mapped out? Okay, always ask that question whenever you map out the steps. What does my VA or my team member need to know in order to complete this task properly? What resources does she need to have? What access does she need to have in order to complete this process, this step? Does that make sense? So you just take note of these, right? And then from here at the top, in blue notes, I've basically answered. I basically answered like what's needed, right? So my team member needs to know the login credentials. She needs to have the step-by-step guide on how to know the best times to post. In Canva, she needs to have the login credentials. She needs to have access to the design guidelines or the branding guidelines. She needs to have the step-by-step guide and so on and so forth. All right. So at the end of these exercise, now it's so easy. Okay. Because if you look at this, right, look at how I put that, how I was able to translate this workflow. I mean, this flowchart that I did with all of the notes that I've created. Look at this. The first step is to log in Metricool using my access through LastPass. The second step, go to Planning tab. Because here's the thing, look at that. How to know the best times to post. I need to have the step-by-step guide to know the best times to post. So I need to go to Planning tab, and then in the new tab, blah, 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 right? So it basically allows me to convert and document the steps easily because I have all these notes and I have this flow chart to guide me. Are you guys getting this? So this is the hack that I told you about, and this is one of my favorite hacks um, that I do. Okay, to easily convert the steps or the workflow into a document. Look at that, right? Because it's clear to you. And sometimes whenever this is the good thing about SOPs, because as you map this out, you also get to know your process better. You get to understand your process better, and then you'll be able to identify the gaps. Okay, you'll be able to identify the gaps. Like, oh, I need to create this resource, this design guidelines. I don't have that. So when I need to delegate this task to my VA or to my team member, she needs to understand the guidelines that I follow myself when designing content. Does that make sense? So now I would understand I don't have this resource. I need to get this resource done because this resource is going to allow my team member to get this task done properly. Are you guys getting this? That's why this exercise is super important. Okay, I can't stress that enough. Um, so yeah, and then finally, you just want to refine the process over time. All right. So that is a quick demo of the SOP that I was able to create um, by following this five-step roadmap, right? And using Metricool as an example. All right. So let's quickly summarize what we were able to accomplish in this training, right? So we were able to identify that SOPs are the lead domino that makes the biggest impact in our business. We all agree that's the case. Also, using flowcharts and videos are the shortcuts to documenting your processes so it doesn't have to be overwhelming and stressful. And then finally, you were able to learn my process to profit framework, which allows you to create SOPs and then convert them into revenue generating assets like digital courses or downloadables. All right. So remember, you want to do less with more using the power of process flow. Start leveraging SOPs in your business because not only will it streamline your business operations and service delivery, it also allows you to create new revenue streams in your business, right? And as my parting gift for paying attention and attending this training or watching this training, you do have access to my free profitability calculator. Just go to hazeljune.com/metricool. And then if you have any questions at all about anything that I've covered here, go ahead and email support@hazeljune.com and I will try my best to answer your questions as soon as possible. Okay? So again, for any questions, support at hazeljune.com and then go to hazeljune.com/metrical if you want to download the free profitability calculator. All right. So let me just take this opportunity to thank Metricool for partnering with me in bringing this amazing value to every Metricool users. And if you're not a Metricool user yet, go ahead and try it out. It is super helpful. Like I use it in my own business. I use it mainly for analytics. And now I will start using it for publishing content as well. Okay, so go ahead and try it out. It's metricool.com. And again, if you have any questions, support at hazeljune.com. Thanks again for watching this training, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.